Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of September 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Edmond Dulac Tarot for you today. Just before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost. You can watch for your moon and your ascendant sign if that's what you would like to do. Plus hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people who I am blessed to know. They've been amazing this year. So if that's something that it sounds like will be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Right, Aries, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Aries, please? 3 cards for Aries. We have the Fool in your recent past. That's really quite wonderful. Let's have a look here. There it is. Get it straight. Okay. And what about current energy for Aries, please? We have the Tower. I feel like that's kind of awesome, actually, for you. There's a wave of positivity that's coming off that. Tell me what's coming towards Aries for September, please. We have the 5 of Pentacles in reverse, and we have the 6 of Swords also appearing in reverse, and the 8 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. So I really like this, Aries. And the fact that the 6 of Swords is in reverse is not really that much of a surprise, because we do find ourselves currently within a Mercury retrograde that's going to be taking up most of September. But additionally, we do have a lot of other planets in retrograde too. I think we'll end up with 7 by the end of, by some point in September, I believe. Astrologers amongst you might want to do what? Put it more lucidly than I just did in the comments. Anyhow, with the 8 of Wands at the bottom of the deck, we're actually starting to see an increase in momentum. And before I even go any further, I'm struck by this window that we see here and the patterning of it, because it looks to me like a church window here. And we've got the same thing appearing down here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put it so that you can see that right at the top of the picture there. It's almost like there's an elevation going on. But in order to access that elevation, we need to go back to something. And what we need to go back to is the 5 of Pentacles. Thankfully, the 5 of Pentacles is in the reverse. And that absolutely fits with the positivity that I'm feeling off the Fool and the World card. This deck is truly extraordinarily beautiful. I can't even tell you. So let's get some clarifiers. Put some meat on these bones. Tell me about the Fool card, please. Why is that here for Aries? Thank you. We have the Lovers card. Beautiful. Oh. And we have the Page of Pentacles in reverse. Tell me about the Tower. Wow, okay. 4 of Cups again. That card's come out a lot for you this year, Aries. Oh, goodness. And the 3 of Wands. And 5 of Pentacles. We have the 5 of Wands. Fucking hell. Not this, all right. Well, apparently you want to come out. So we've got the King of Cups, and we've got the Star and the Queen of Wands at the bottom of the deck. There you are, Aries. Right. While I'm fiddling with these and making them straight and all that sort of thing, so that we don't all get triggered by how messy the cards are, we just look at those for a second. This month isn't without its downs, but I feel like it's characterised more by its ups than anything else. My selenite here. On account of the fact that it seems very much in accordance with how we would expect a retrograde season to go, in so much as we are reassessing reanalyzing, rejigging. If you can put re on the beginning of it as a prefix, then that's what we're doing this season. But you're straight out of the blocks, in a very Aries way, hurtling towards positivity. Actually, there's Aries card here of the Queen of Wands, which indicates that there's something very authentic going on here, and there's something very authentically in line with your energy. So we have the implication that initiation is very, very important here. Now, I just want to issue a note of caution. Let us not run before we can walk, because retrograde season is not a good time for initiating something, but it is a good time for reigniting something that you have already started, something that you've already thought about, right? It's a good time for planning and going back over what you've already done, making sure that it's going to take you in the right direction. The retrograde season is really about tidying up, tidying up loose ends, tidying up thought processes, tidying up emotions, so that when all of these planets station direct and start their apparent forward motion, you can really hit the ground running. And this Fool card here, straight out of the blocks, is really, really beautiful. I mean, it does talk about a new start, a new cycle. It's the first card in the major arcana. It is an Aries card, and it is the desire to do things so very, very differently to the way that you've done them up until this point, Aries. It's not taking away any of the things that make you who you are, but I think it's shifting perhaps the direction of travel, but certainly the motivation for travel, right? It feels like you've undergone an incredible purification process in this last 18 months. Would you want to repeat it? Absolutely not. In no way. It's been a really, really difficult period for you. And for a lot of you, it's been characterized by loss. It's been characterized by the instability that is caused by all of the things that have felt to be foundational in your life, kind of crashing down around your ears. But in the aftermath of that energy, as you have slowly begun to start realizing what it is that has value and what it is that what it is that matters where it didn't before. I think Aries really has been pushed to the brink in the last year and a half. And now, with the nodal shift that we recently experienced, that was back in July, that saw the North Node being pushed into your sign, it seems like everything now is starting to make some sense. I mean, the nature of what the towers have been, and I described your situation as a protracted tower moment that's gone over quite a long time. What we have now is the dust settling. What we have now is a new version of you that is emerging. But we're not quite ready to start hurtling forwards. Like I said, we need to do this little tidying up process first. And we've got the Lovers card there, which is incredibly, well supportive energy to the energy of the Fool, because it talks about free will. It talks about conscious co-creation. It talks about union and harmony and all of those kind of things. But it can speak to decision-making processes too. And how what you have undergone in the last year and a half has really, I'll say it again, has really shown you what is important. It's shown you who is important. It's shown you things about yourself that you perhaps haven't seen before at all, let alone bits of you that you haven't seen in decades. It's shown you where psychologically you might have got lost in the weeds for quite a long time. I've been using this phrase a lot recently. I've been using it with reference to myself as much as anything else too, where certain patterns and certain conditioning that has built up over a considerable period has become your default, and you couldn't see a way out of it, and now you can. Now you're ready to do that. except not quite, because we have the Page of Pentacles in reverse. Now, this is asking something of you, or has been asking something of you, Aries. You know, likely this Fool energy was kind of kicking off and sparking before Mercury went into retrograde. But we've been through the Venus retrograde in Leo, which is thankfully just about to come to an end. I don't know about anybody else, but it's been kind of crunchy, as one of my people on Circle put it. It's crunchy energy. But again, it's been about sifting through the things that have value. What does this all mean? What do I want from my life? What do I want from the people in my life? What do I want to be to the people in my life? And how do we work through any kind of issues that have been coming up in any one of those different areas, so that there aren't any cracks in the foundations? Now, think about retrograde energy as your ability to go and check the foundations of everything. And just make sure that you are maintaining them properly, because I think that's probably a really good way to look at it. From here, you don't need to touch it again for another little, period of time, however long that is. But you can do so safe in the knowledge that anything that might have been, a crack in something somewhere, or a little bit of something falling down somewhere else, structurally it is sound, and you can move forward. Because the other meaning of the Fool, which does seem to be what is coming to the fore here, is trust and faith. And this is why I say it's going to ask a little bit of you, or it has been asking a little bit of you, because there are a few things that you have been having to do on faith. That might be investment in people. It might be trusting people to do what they say they're going to do. Trusting people full stop, because that's something Aries struggles with, even though it's not often brought up. There are very good reasons why you've always felt the weight of the world on your shoulders, and that is simply because other people haven't been there to support you. Maybe more recently, I'm talking about in the last 5 years or so, you've come to realize that what has been your experience in the last 5 years is perhaps you pushing people away who were available to help, because of this preemptive expectation that at some point they're going to drop the ball and you're going to have to pick it up anyway. So better that you just have the ball for the whole game, because at least you're going to get to the goal, or try to at least. But because of the protracted Tower moment, we've essentially ended up with you kind of pushing yourself to breaking point, So now a few more things have to be taken on faith. A few more things have to be initiated with trust. And this has been a huge learning curve for you, Aries. And as much as you would like to get on with the act of manifesting this most glorious existence that you are now in a position to be able to appreciate, and the way that you're able to navigate around life differently now, the universe is saying, hold up, there's just a few more things that we need to do. And this isn't the universe kicking you in the shins. It's not the universe letting you get yourself to your feet and then just whipping your knees out from underneath you. It's like, no, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. So the Page of Pentacles is saying we're still just looking for a couple of the things that have value, because we're not quite there yet. And when I see the Page of Pentacles, often this is talking to me about self-worth, self-esteem. There's still some oogly booglies knocking around in the cupboards that you haven't quite cleared out yet. So it's time not just to have a candle or a torch and be looking in the corners. It's time to get that 5 million candle watt power torch thing and put it in the room. Illuminate everything, because we don't want anything coming out, dropping out from somewhere that we haven't seen, to come and sideswipe us later on. Like, this is a process of cleaning house, and it's got to be thorough. It's got to be done properly. So the forward movement isn't quite here yet. It's more like lateral movement. And that's okay. I mean, when we come into your current energy, we've got the energy of the Tower there, and I said, it does feel really, really good to me. The Tower is one of those cards that terrifies people generally, and probably not without good reason, because it does speak to a destabilization. I mean, ultimately what the Tower is doing, it's an expression of the universe's energy telling you need to go in a different direction. This way forward is no longer for you. This is the way that you have to go. And we can fight that. I mean, as fire signs, we often do fight that. And probably, the last 18 months was certainly the whole of 2022 was taken up with a need to fight, a need to just try and smash up anything that felt like a threat. But it didn't work because the threats just kept coming and coming. And more than that, it wasn't just threats. It was, actual loss, actual falling downs of towers. But we must almost come back to the concept that your external world is a reflection of your internal world, right? So as the towers started to fall outside of you, there was a corresponding falling of towers within. And because these were kind of externally forced upon you, you didn't initiate these towers, they all just sort of happened. And, it never rains but it pours. So one thing falls over and then the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. That, interestingly, was 2017, 2018 for me. That 18-month period was almost exactly what you've experienced. Where the things that we consider to be so concrete, so fundamental, the literal pillars of our existence just fall over, and you're like, what the fuck do I pin myself to now? Where do I anchor myself? I can't. And there's this swirling around, this energy inside that's going, fuck. I don't understand what is happening. I don't understand why this is happening. Now, I think on the other side of this process, you understand very well why this is happening. Not perhaps individual situations, but certainly the arc of the personal growth that has been undergone by you during this process. So this Tower here, it doesn't feel unpleasant to me. The Tower is just something that you don't see coming, really. It's something that moves you off in a different direction. And we have the Four of Cups clarifying. Now, I said when this card came out, this has kind of been stalking you a little bit, and I can see how it is absolutely connected to this Page of Pentacles. Because remember how I said the Page of Pentacles was an indication of one's understanding of value, and often that is personal value, right? It's saying there's still a little bit of work that needs to be done on the self-esteem. There's still a little bit of work on strengthening up the legs, right? You got so used to your legs being taken out from underneath you over and over and over again. There's been a healing process that you've been undergoing for the last 6 months, and that, I think, simply has been the getting yourself back on your feet. But you're not yet ready to run. Maybe walking is a little bit difficult at the moment, because I think one of the things that's most difficult to get your head around after having these very long protracted Tower moments where it seems like all of the dominoes have fallen at once, or you just watch them go and they go for months, and you're like, how could anything like this have been constructed? Like, really, and it's us. Like, we've spent decades setting up this really intricate domino run. It just takes one flick and the whole thing falls down. Because the Four of Cups is, I'm going to say it again, abandonment issues. And the funny thing about abandonment issues is that they don't always show up the way that you think they do, right? So we've been talking about this quite a lot over the last few months. Those people with abandonment issues do not always show up as people who are spectacularly needy. Really puts my back up when I see that. I'm just like, just stop, right? Stop. Pull your power back to you and do something about it, right? I'm pretty sure as Aries, as a fellow fire sign, because this seems to be something that fire signs hoik their judgy pants up about, it's that neediness. But abandonment issues can manifest themselves in other ways, and one of those is the psychopathic independence. I will not rely on anyone. I will do everything myself. I'll do everybody else's shit as well, because quite clearly nobody else is capable of doing that. You know, you feel that weight of responsibility so fucking strongly, and we don't know where it comes from. Because we just don't know where it comes from. And because we don't know where it comes from, there's it's kind of like an assumption that everybody else feels that same level of motivation to be psychopathically independent. And they don't. Because for whatever reason, this seems to be a trauma response that is reflected throughout the element of fire, right? Until we recognize it, till we see what it is. And it would certainly indicate a lack of trust of self and of other people. And I say of self because there's such a fear in allowing anybody else to have control of something. And this is true for Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. We like to be in charge of our own shit, but sometimes we can do it to such a degree that it becomes hyper-independence. It becomes independence at all costs. There's never any sense of interdependence. There's never any sense of, even though we might not articulate it directly, trusting other people. Trusting other people to do things, but trusting other people with what is precious to us. Now that, as far as I'm concerned, would be the Aries, probably the Leo and Sagittarius, experience of abandonment issues. Nobody's there, nobody's saving us, we've got to do everything ourselves. And it's exhausting. You know, it's like you won't ever let yourself rest. And it is important that you allow yourself to rest. The reason that you don't allow yourself to rest is because of this terror, absolute terror of that. Now, some of you over the last 18 months will have almost certainly experienced financial issues. Right? The money's just not there. It seems like it's flowing out at a faster rate than it's flowing in. Now, money and your relationship with money is an absolute subset of how you feel about yourself, right? Your self-worth. You go looking into the psychology of wealth and all that kind of thing, right? They will talk very clearly about that sort of thing. It's in some ways a poverty mindset. Oh, I'm going to say across the board, you probably all have had some sort of money issues at some point in the last 18 months. It's not such a psychic revelation because, you know, we're living in troubled times and all that kind of thing, but very specific to you is that thing there. So what we've got is a character, a person, you, who has felt increasingly cut adrift. And it's a mirror. It's a mirror that has been held up to you to show you where there is a lack in your life. And the weirdest thing is, although the towers on the outside might have been, at least in part, what you have focused on, right? That's where the loss and the lack has been represented. There's been a corresponding internal loss and lack toward the idea that you might actually have an inherent value that exists beyond what you do, what you provide for other people, whether or not people see you as a strong, independent person, whether or not you are someone who can be lent on by other people, right? Because that's an important thing too, I think, for Aries. It's asking you to look at yourself in a different way. It's asking you to put yourself first in a different way to the way that you might have done before. Now, it's a bit of a trope, but Aries is often considered to be a sign that is capable of great selfishness. Now, a lot of the signs have that. Well, it's the shadow side of every sign, but there's something particularly pertinent about it with Aries, and it's often coming from a place of, sometimes they're just selfish people out there, right? regardless of what sign they are. But it's the way that you're perceived by other people. Sometimes it looks like you really do just put yourself first, right? But they're missing what's going on underneath, right? There's a desire to protect, there's a desire to provide, there's a desire to make sure that nobody's suffering quite as much as you are. But again, it's outward facing, and this is what fire does, right? It's outward facing. Everything comes from the inside out. So we look around at our external environment and we're like, I need to do these things because I feel responsible for these people, right? Without appreciating that there's a mirror being held up that is saying, Aries, you actually need to stop and rest and be kind to yourself. You actually need to pay attention to what is this underlying script that just day in, day out does the same thing on autopilot, has the same reactions to the same situations on autopilot. You need to take it off autopilot and start scrutinizing this, because it could be showing up in all sorts of ways that you haven't been able to recognize until this point. But you've been pushed to the point of absolute exhaustion, and quite likely beyond, in the last year and a half. You got to a point where even you have had to say, I actually can't cope here. And this was never about it being a punishment. This was about a mirror being held up to you saying, Aries, you don't treat yourself nicely at all. Aries, have you listened to the way that you speak to yourself? Aries, there are so many things wrong here that need healing. And you can't possibly do those while you are trying to maintain this idea of your identity that your ego is so wound up in. It's like, in the truest sense, Aries, what you've undergone here is a kind of ego death. But it was one that needed to happen. Now, the ego is essential, right? I don't hold much store with these kind of more modern ideas. Well, not more modern ideas, but certainly there's a thrust of it in the New Age community, which is like, just got to have no ego whatsoever. If you had no ego, you'd have no sense of self-preservation. If you had no ego, you wouldn't fight for anything. I can't think of anything worse than an Aries whose fight has gone. But it's about being discerning, and it's about being evolved. It's about being the leader, the protector, the warrior, rather than the aggressor. You know, someone who cuts and lashes out if they felt it. It's about being a warrior in the garden, Aries. Now, I think your constant fear is that you're actually a gardener in a war. And so this hypervigilance that we see all of the time, this advanced threat detection that sees, the potential for war in literally everything, such that they don't have the time to look at the garden. They don't have time to start actually, tending to the garden at all, because it's like it's everything is on a permanent war footing. You're at war with the universe. You're at war with all the situations in your life. You're at war possibly with the people in your life. But most importantly, you're at war with yourself. The energies of the last 18 months, and I really do feel like this month for you is the push to get beyond this energy, has been about showing you how to be a warrior in a garden. Because we've got the Three of Wands here. The Three of Wands is a card, it's a low-level card of manifestation for me, right? You've got a higher expression of that manifestation energy here in the Lover's card, but this Three of Wands here is like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do so that you exemplify the wisdom that you have been accruing over the last 18 months, because it's been hard fucking one, Aries. There's a lot of yourself that has gone into this, but also been excised out of this. Possibly the things that have been excised were never yours to begin with. And I think that's probably really quite strong for a lot of you. The Three of Wands is active movement forwards. But the Tower and the Four of Cups seem to be making this more of an abstract consideration. In light of the Tower, in light of what I've learned about myself and my abandonment issues and how they express, how they manifest themselves out in our life, how can I choose to manifest differently? How can I be the warrior in the garden? You know, we even see that concept, really, in the Emperor card. Because the Emperor sat there and, you know, on his throne, and he's garbed in the finery that you would expect from an emperor. But there's just a little, like, sight here and there of the fact that the Emperor is wearing armour underneath all of that finery. If necessary, he can go to war. If necessary, he can plan and strategize and take the actions that are required to deal with what problem comes up. It's there. Right? The experience is there, the willingness is there, but there's also that idea that there is a whole other side to being an emperor. It's the creation of order where there has been chaos. It's taking care of all aspects of running an empire, right? The empire being your life. It's about knowing when to sit the fuck down, Aries. And I'm not saying, you know, like, this isn't your fight, sit the fuck down and be quiet. It's like, do you know what? There's no war going on right here. I can sit and I can start dealing with the other parts of my life. This Three of Wands, like I said, it feels like more of a theoretical exploration of what it is that you need to do, so that the lessons of the last year and a half, the wisdom of the last year and a half, is now part of you. It's what you're bringing out into the world. Re-emerging, because you're certainly almost ready to do that. And doing things differently. I've seen the Three of Wands shift in its meaning. I literally over the last few months, actually, to become less about like what we're doing right now, which is a very, very fire sign thing to do, right? We don't feel like we're doing something unless we're doing something. And then we get panic stricken that we're not in control because we're not actively doing a thing. Like this is more of a theoretical. What things would I do if I was truly allowing myself to relax into the idea that I can do things differently? And what kind of things could I manifest if I did things differently? How do I offset my abandonment issues? Right? Literally, just in the first instance, offset them. Ultimately, looking to heal them. How do I take my life in a different direction? One that has meaning, but it also has peace. It has a fucking garden. How do we do that? Well, the answer is here in September. We've got the Five of Pentacles in reverse and the Six of Swords in reverse. Now, I think we get a better understanding of what these cards mean reversed if we look at them in the first instance in their upright. So, here in the Five of Pentacles, we have a cold and snowy scene, right? And there's obviously some sanctuary in the church there, but it's going to be pretty brutal to be outside while it looks like that, right? The received wisdom of this card is that it does indicate those situations whereby we have been left out in the cold, we are isolated, we do not have the warmth of the sanctuary that is indicated by the church here. Like, we feel like we've been rejected. Four of Cups, you know, we feel like we've been pushed out of something. Now, the deeper meaning of this card for me, when you really sit with it, is an appreciation of how we have created a situation, and by that I mean, you know, whatever's going on in here, the way that we see the world, the way that we think the world works, and the way that we think we understand what the universe wants from us, which is to be in a state of hypervigilance all the time. And we see that feeling that we have of being isolated, being out in the cold, being all that kind of thing, is again a reflection of what is going on inside. It's an indication of where we have not met our own basic needs, likely because we have not even recognized that we have basic needs. And I'm not talking about, food and water and shelter, although for some of you that might have been an issue over the last 18 months. We're talking about the independence, the hypervigilance towards needing to do everything ourselves, such that we have isolated ourselves from other people. We have isolated ourselves from what it is that we require to live a meaningful and emotionally fulfilled, and dare I say it, maybe even, materially fulfilled life. If you have been having problems with housing, and again, yeah, I've been there too, then it could have been that you just haven't felt like you could ask for assistance in that. Asking for help is such a huge thing, Aries. And when you are hyper-independent, psychopathically independent, I keep saying that, by the way, because an ex of mine once told me that I was psychopathically independent, and I just kind of preened a little bit because that was the highest praise that I could receive. As far as I was concerned at that point, I didn't realise it wasn't really a compliment, and it wasn't really a good thing either, but I read it to be that way at the time. Now I see what he was getting at. Anyway, asking for help is not something that one does in those situations. We would literally chew off our own arm before asking anyone for anything, even remotely approaching help. Because in the asking for help, we have always perceived that as weakness, right? That neediness. Oh, I can't do it myself, therefore I must be an absolute piece of shit. The equation is literally as simple as that. Now, you might say it in different terms in your head, but that's effectively what you're coming down to every single time. What a fucking waste of space you are. You can't even sort this out for yourself. You're not objectively looking at your life and going, holy fucking shit, no one could cope in this situation. It doesn't matter if no one else could cope in that situation. What we've got is these unrealistic expectations of ourselves and what we can achieve alone. Because we've never had the benefit of being shown what a supportive environment looks like where people are interdependent. My partner really pissed me off one day. It was about a year ago. Maybe it's a bit longer. And he looked at me and he went, asking for help isn't giving up. It's actually the complete opposite. And I scowled at him because he was right. And I didn't want him to be right. But he was. There's something much more threatening about asking for help, or even allowing yourself to receive help from people who are kind of feeling like pushing it on you. There's something more threatening about that than living with the consequences of not being able to cope. That's fucked up, Aries. There's no judgment for me because I've been every single bit of as fucked up as you have in that respect. But I mean, really, sit and think about it. Externalize this so that you can visualize a situation where you're witnessing someone that you care about, a friend, a partner, a family member, who is doing this. And you see it and you're like, fuck me, they need some help. Let me go help them. And then you try to offer your help and they go, what the fuck? They're almost offended that you would even think that they need help. And you're not trying to take anything away from them. You're not trying to get one over on them. You're not thinking, oh, this is one in the pocket for later, I can call this favour in at some point. It's born of a genuine desire to help. What we as fire signs have been finding it very, very difficult to do is accept it. Because there are always strings. It always comes back to bite you in some way or another, right? But that's us living in the past. It is not us paying attention to the situations in front of us. It's not us having realistic expectations about what it is that we can achieve. Because for some reason we set ourselves apart from everybody else. There are more demands. There is more necessity to be perfect, maybe? I don't know. And we have the Six of Swords. Now the Six of Swords is a moving away from a situation, right? It's swords, so it's workings of the mind. It's moving away from the Five of Swords, which is, cognitive loops often, but it's arguments and stuff too. There's a state of conflict that has been obviously undergone at some point, and what we have is one person holding all the swords and two other people going, fuck this, it's not worth the effort, and turning around and walking away. Now the Six of Swords is where we're moving on from that. We're literally putting distance between us and that kind of situation there. The result of these cards showing up in the reverse here is that we are going back to something. We are revisiting something that we have already moved away from. Again, very retrograde energy here. And we're investigating this. Now, whenever the fives appear, and you've got one reversed, one the right way around, it's a destabilization, right? It takes what was foundational in the four and it blows it the fuck up, right? To make you do it better. So to have a card in the reverse is a stabilization of what is an inherently unstable energy. And in this way, what we've got is you going back to first principles of caring for yourself, first principles of stabilizing yourself, because you've learned so much over the last 18 months. It's like you could just sort of go, well, I know everything that I need to know now. I've learned all the things. I'm just going to put this down, just going to run forwards. That would be a mistake. Particularly September. I mean, most of September is Virgo season. Virgo season's about the detail of things. But Virgo is also the healer. What we've got here is an opportunity to go back to the first principles that you have discovered, I would say specifically over the last 6 months, but it's in response to what has happened in the previous year. So go back to those first principles and what is it that I have learned? What are the things that I need to apply to my life moving forwards? What are the new cornerstones of my existence? And make sure that they're actually there. Because an intellectual appreciation of these issues is insufficient to create a good foundation. It's got to permeate every single bit of you. And I'm seeing enough of an indication here to say that there's still a little bit of work to do there. Like, you're still not being as kind to yourself as you could be. You're still not quite fitting into your skin as comfortably as you could. And it's deep work that's going on here for you in September, because you've got that Five of Wands. Right? There's the instability, there's the conflict. Now the conflict can be with other people outside of you, and there's enough in the astrology to see that for some people you're going to find this quite a testy time, because everybody's got a sharp tongue, everybody's got a criticism, and everybody for some reason feels like it's a good idea to just let that out. But it can also be internal, and don't think for a second that this sharp tongue that we all hold couldn't be used on us, because I think a lot of what September is recognizing within ourselves the way that we speak to ourselves, right? For a lot of you, because we've got the star here as well, right? It's the realization of how much of whatever is coming towards us, right, whatever experience that we face is coloured by narratives of the past. It's like when you walk into a room and you expect that you're going to put everybody's back up. Then you walk into the room and that's exactly what you do. And you perceive that and you go, well, for fuck's sake, like I would just be myself and I just put everybody's backs up as I knew I would. You know, it's not a full thought process. What it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's about examining what it is within you that acts as an expectation. This is what I'm saying, like it's deep work, because you're having to recognize these processes and then challenge them, interrogate them. Why do I have the expectation that this is going to be the thing that happens? I mean, as fire signs, we're supposed to have a kind of immediacy about us, right? Fire is fast. Fire is very present, right? Here 1 minute, gone the next. Or not there at all, suddenly raging inferno, right? There's that speed and that immediacy with fire. But I think that what you're recognizing in September is that whilst you might have shoveled the top level of shit away, from everything, there's still a few more levels. And with this one, you can't use a big paddy shovel and just, hoik it out of the way, or a mechanical digger, or, whatever. Now it's time to start getting the little finer tools out and kind of scraping away, because you're challenging the subconscious script. Okay? The one that has as its result, and it'll be different for you, for each of you, you'll have a different way that you criticize yourself. But the theme of it is, you don't deserve this, or you're not valuable enough for this, or, everybody fucking hates you, so there's no point in expecting anything else, right? Instead, you've got to guard yourself against what is going to be the attack of somebody else. It sounds like a very simplistic thing, but as a thought experiment, run what it would feel like to walk into a room expecting that everybody's going to think you're mint. Experiment with what it would feel like to be considered the most compassionate and empathetic person in the group, the strongest person in the group, the leader in the group, but without the expectation that you're going to have to pick everybody else's crap up and deal with it for them. There's a question of boundaries here, but I'm not sure that they need to be with other people at this point. I know that's a lot of the work that's been going on this year for you. It's more about recognizing where you've walled yourself off to certain defaults, to the extent that you don't see them operating. Biggest revelation for me was realizing, I still find it a bit fucking baffling, actually, when people like me. I've spent so long, so much of my life, hoping desperately that people were going to like me, but then convincing myself ahead of time that was never going to happen because you're fucking weird and bit spiky, not very good at keeping in touch with people. Like, literally, what is there about you to like as a friend? That my mind was already made up about how this was going to go before I even walked into the room. Now, I didn't recognize that about myself for the longest time, but when I did, I was like, huh. So I walk in with this, slightly fuck you attitude, because I'm trying to protect myself from the hurt that hasn't even happened yet. Right? And that's what everybody else sees. There's something that they perceive as kind of a low-level hostility, an aloofness, a detachment. And what was actually going on underneath was a, please fucking like me. I'd really like it if you'd like me, but you're not going to, because this is just one example, but there are many examples that could fit here with what you're experiencing. Like, the key to September for you, Aries, is to be fucking nice to yourself, right? And allow that to dictate how you move forwards, right? The star card's here. The star's about the future and all sorts of stuff, right? But, I mean, just look at the visual on the card. I might get another fucking strike from YouTube for... No, not strike, I keep getting warnings from YouTube about nudity. Hopefully the... hopefully it won't upset them too much, right? But we've got someone here who is stark bollock naked, right? They are in a state of vulnerability. They are open, they are exposed, right? Now, as fire signs, we look at that and go, oof, holy shit, you're just looking to be eaten by lions in that situation. Yet she feels no fear. You know, the star is number 17 in the tarot. Follows on from the tower, which is number 16. Now, 17 reduces down to 8. It's about personal power. In numerology, 8 is all about power and empowerment and expressions of power, abuses of power sometimes, and how you respond to those. But ultimately, it's about the power of being vulnerable. Because to be vulnerable is allowing yourself to be seen. And whether you realise it or not, Aries, there's a lot of you that isn't seen, not just by other people, but also by you. So when I say it's about returning to first principles, like what do you know about how, a well-functioning, emotionally healthy person takes care of themselves? What do you know about how they speak to themselves? What do you know about how how they would go about the act of manifesting stuff, for example? And then it's allow that to be seen. You know, a lot of what you are is a front even to yourself. A front, not an affront, right? It's a front. I must be strong. I must be independent. I must not be needy. I cannot let anybody see, odd feelings that might rattle around inside me where I feel exposed and threatened. I've got to clap back hard. Maybe I even have to strike first just so that people know that they can't fuck with me. That's a trauma response, Aries. And it's certainly not paying attention to the situation that is in front of you. Like, true strength comes from knowing that you can sit there like that, and if a lion does come along, for example, to try and eat you, you have all the tools to put the lion down. I don't know where she might be hiding her crossbow, but you know what I mean. You have the tools to do that because you are actually strong. There's not this, defense mechanism up here. You're actually strong. That in turn allows you to deal with the situation that is in front of you and not looking for ways in which people are trying to undermine you or people are trying to make you depend on them or any one of a number of things. Like, the whole of September is about you accessing your authenticity. The 8 of Wands is an increase in momentum. It's also communication and whatnot. And I feel like you can expect for this process of clearing house to gain momentum, to gather momentum over the course of September. There's actually something kind of thrilling about it. I'm excited for you because it's the recognition of this. We're going back to see where it is that you conflicted. We're going back to see where it is that you are not being the King of Cups and the Star to yourself, so that you can actually do that. I mean, this is really interesting, Aries. I prattled on for far longer than I wanted to, but I'm going to go over to do the extended now. So you're welcome to join me over on Vimeo or on Circle, where either are good, if you would like to see the video. If not, no shade, not a problem. The momentum's not forwards, though. The momentum's inwards this month. And come October, there's going to be a lot more... Like I said, you're just going to feel a lot more comfortable in your skin. And that's not a small thing, Aries. Particularly if you've never experienced it before. And that's going to put you in a very good position to start powering forwards, because your foundations are good, you know. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.